let's learn a little bit about adding integers. 12 plus 13 equals 25. Did you know that each of those numbers has a particular name? When we're talking about a sum or adding, the numbers that you are adding are called addends. Big words, very impressive words. You could use those to talk to your parents or your friends and they'll be super impressed. And the 25 is simply called the sum. So addend and addend equals the sum. We're going to use a little bit of mathematical modeling. Now, mathematical modeling is used in all kinds of areas, biology, science, chemistry, whichever. So we're going to use a little bit of it now. When I have these little discs that have a plus symbol, that stands for a plus 1. If it has a minus, it stands for a minus 1. So what happens when you have plus 1 attached to a minus 1? Well, if I have $1 and you take $1 away, how much do I have? I don't have anything. So it's what we call a neutral pair. So plus 1 minus 1 doesn't change any values. So if I look at this picture, I have 3 pluses. So that tells me that my value is 3. Here I have 3 minuses, so that tells me that I have 3 negatives. Negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. That's 3 negatives. Well, how about this? I have pluses mixed with minuses. So if I join a plus to a minus, I have nothing. So let's see, I have this right here. So that's a neutral pair. This right here, that's a neutral pair. And this right here, that's a neutral pair. So really and truly, I have nothing. So what is that saying? Well, I had 3 pluses and I had 3 negatives. But I can tell I had nothing. So 3 minus 3 is 0. So these are supposed to look a little scary, right? But let's find our neutral pairs. So if I join a plus with a minus, a plus with this minus, and this here, I have 3 pluses. So my value is 3. Well, let's look at this again. I had 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. And how many positives did I had? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we know that all of this together, when we add them up, the value is 3. So negative 4 plus 7 gives us 3. Again, here we have a little smaller, so this one's a little simpler. We join our neutral pairs, plus to a minus, and I'm left with negative 1. I started with 2 positives and 3 negatives. So negative 3 and 2 positives is going to give me a negative 1. Last but not least, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to write that down here. And I have 3 positives. Well, let's join our neutral pairs. And I have 3 negatives left. So we have just mathematically modeled adding integers. Okay, positive and negatives on the number line. Let's add negative 3 and 7 using the number line. Now, let's pick a number, either one, the negative 3 or the 7, and let's start at that number. Since negative 3 is first, let's go ahead and use that. Now, whenever you see a negative, that tells you have to go to the left. Whenever you see a positive, you go to the right. So I have negative 3, so I'm going to start here, and I need to add 7. So that means I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And where did I end up? I ended up here. So what this tells me is that negative 3 plus 7 equals 4. So two different ways to graphically represent adding integers. So here's some numerical expressions. Negative 4 plus 3. You can think back to the mathematical modeling. You can use your number line. We have negative 4 plus 3. We end up with negative 1. Negative 6 plus 10. We end up with 4. 8 plus negative 3 gives us 5. And 4 plus negative 9 gives us negative 5. So what if we want to add more than one integer? No problem. We will simply have some extra steps. So, and really that should say 2. So let's pick a number. Let's start with the first one, negative 10. And says plus 8. So positive 8 says move to the right. So let's move 8 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That lands us at negative 2. But now we have to add negative 2. Negative 2 says we go back that way. So we're actually going to go back 1, 2. So that tells us that negative 10 plus 8 plus negative 2 gives us negative 4. So what if my numbers are too big for the number line? We're going to talk about, remember when we did absolute value, we took the absolute value of numbers? Well, if the signs are the same when we're adding integers, we can take the absolute value and we can add them together. So I know that if I have negative 1,562 and I'm going to have another negative, I'm going farther to the left on the negative number line. But that's okay. We simply know that our answer is going to be a negative number. So how big is that negative? Well, let's line these up in columns and let's add the absolute value together. So 5 plus 2 is 7. 6 plus 6 is 12. Remember, we can't have 2 digits in a 1-digit place. So we write the 2 and we carry the 1. 8 plus 5 is 13. Plus 1 is 14. But again, can't have 2 digits in a 1-digit place, so we have to carry the 1. So last but not least, 1 plus 1 is 2. So the absolute value when we add them together is 2,427. We already discussed that it was negative because both of these numbers are negative, and that's always going to be true. If you're adding integers and they have the same sign, both negative or both positive, then you can add the absolute values and the sign will stay the same. So you decide if it's positive or negative and put that in your answer spot, and then just add the way that you've been adding for several years now. Signs are the same. Okay, they're both positive, so we know that it's going to be positive, but we don't need to write a positive sign here, but we can just to remind ourselves that it is positive, because more often than not, if you're going to make a mistake, it will be a silly little mistake on the sign that you should have. So let's write these in columns, and let's add the absolute value. So 5 plus 5 is 10. So we write down the 0, we carry the 1. 6 and 8 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 2 plus 1 is 4. And then we have 8. So we have 8,450. And that is a little bit on how to add integers.